we go. There we go. Come on out of there, buddy. Oh. Yep. Oh, Hollywood drag. Hey folks, Justin from Tackle Tactics. Absolutely beautiful weather today we're out in. You know, when you've got a bit of time over that holidays, you just got to make the most of that weather. We got some hectic winds and rain, but we're out here today, see if we can catch ourselves a few fish. When you're fishing conditions that don't really work in your favour, you want to be fishing a plastic that you have complete faith in. And for me, one plastic that should be in every angler's kit is this guy here, the ZMan 2.5 inch GrubZ. Everything eats a ZMan 2.5 inch GrubZ. We've kicked things off with a nice grunter. There you go, nice handful of grunter on a ZMan 2.5 inch GrubZ in midnight oil colour. So we got that UV to help us with this low light that we've got today, and we've got that bit of flash as well on there, and that's on a 1/4 ounce 1.0 fishing over the top of the flats. So those grunter, they're moving up on these flats to feed with the run-in tide, and we're going to get a few of them hopefully on this ZMan 2.5 inch GrubZ. So targets for the day, brim, grunter, flatties. We're getting rained on, but we're catching fish. All right, stay tuned. We'll get this guy off and back in the water. We're going to take a closer look at the ZMan 2.5 inch GrubZ, some jig heads that we use for fishing it, and some different retrieve techniques to get you hooked up. Oh, come on buddy, let's get you back in the water. Nice grunter. We've got some pretty average weather, but one good thing about the average weather is it often fires the fish up. The fish can get up here, the water's all stirred up, so we can't see them, they can't see us, so they feel pretty well protected. We're only in about 1/2 metre of water. We're basically just going to scan across this flats with the plastic and cover a bit of water. So 1/4 ounce head for a big long cast, even though we're only fishing 1/2 metre of water. We're just going to give it a few twitches and hops over this flat. With those overcast skies, we've got that UV reactive plastic on here, and it's all just about covering water. So we're just going to run and gun on the flats a bit. As the tide pushes up into the mangroves a bit more, we're going to get up there and pick a few pockets in the mangroves as well, see if we can find a few brim, grunter, flathead, those sorts of things up in there. So great thing about this curl tail, loads of action, whether we're sinking it down, hopping it and twitching it on the bottom, or even if it's just sitting there with that tail waving around. So it's attracting fish all of the time throughout the retrieve. All right, just rolling that across the flat. So there's a few different retrieves that you can do when you're fishing this 2.5 inch GrubZ. It responds well to most retrieves. That one was on a slow roll over the flat. This guy's come to have a look at it, and that Gamakatsu hook has pinned him. So that's a light wire hook on there. So it's a light wire Gamakatsu. It's a TT HeadlockZ Finesse UV in the light wire. So I like the light wire for picking over the flats, because these guys will have a pick at it. Sometimes you'll catch them on the face. Sometimes you catch them right in the lip with that fine wire hook. So he's just a handful of brim, but a grunter, nice grunter to kick things off, and now a brimbo up on the flats, fishing that ever reliable 2.5 inch GrubZ. I'll talk you through that retrieve that we were doing then. So basically one of the retrieves that you can do, I'm fishing over a bit of sand, weed, rubble. So I'm just making a big long cast. I'm using that wind. We're just basically wind drifting this flat, and I'm just using a slow roll. So that was just a slow wind of the plastic, and it's a good way to represent a bait fish. So it looks like a bait fish swimming. Every now and then you can just put a little dart in of the bait fish, give it a few little hops and rips as a darting sort of retrieve, and that's a great way to represent a bait fish. So the versatility of the little curl tail is we can use it to imitate a bait fish, a prawn, worms and things on the bottom. So that slow roll with a few twitches is a good way to make it look like a bait fish cruising across the flat. All right, let's throw some long casts, get that thing twitching and get into another one. Just doing a big drift across a big expanse of weed, so big flat. Looking on the sounder for patches of bait. When we find patches of weed, broken weed, that's always good for holding bait and holding fish. Oh, there we go. We got him. We got him. Oh, only a pocket rocket, that one. That's a handful of brim. Yep, yep. Oh yeah. Drilled that up there. So that's 2 fish and 2 casts. Often the way it can be when you're drifting the flats, you find a patch. Just a little fella, that one, but we'll get him off quick, get him back in the water. We'll get back out there again because we seem to be onto a little bit of a patch. Really good fun on that 1 to 3 kilo gear. So 1 to 3 kilo rod, 1000 size reel, light braid, 10 pound leader in case we get a flatty, and we're just covering water. So big long cast in about 1.2 meters there. Give it a few shakes, let it fall. And it's all about making it look like a prawn or bait fish fleeing, and then giving it that pause where the fish can come up into it and have a look and eat it. So lots of action in the grubs, which is great because there's plenty of movement throughout the retrieve. It's a very hard plastic to fish wrong. You can fish it a bit faster, fish it a bit slower, pause it more, pause it less. It doesn't matter, that tail's doing all the work for you. Just a matter of finding what the fish like on the day. Today they've liked a nice twitchy retrieve with that pause, allowing them to eat it, catch up with it and eat it. Tough conditions today with the wind, the big tide, and also a lot of fresh water in the system. So it's important to throw a plastic that you've got confidence in. So for me, the 2.5 inch GrubZ is a great one for your bread and butter river and estuary species, fishing the saltwater. A stack of species love it. And it's nice and easy to fish because it's got loads of action. In terms of jig heads that I fish the GrubZ on, my go-to is the DemonZ in a 1/4 ounce 1/0 a lot of the time, especially with that wind and the big tide. We want that weight for getting a cast and also to control that plastic and keep it down there in the strike zone. Lots of action in that plastic, so it's going to fish for you throughout the retrieve. If you don't want to go into the painted head side of things, a couple of great options are the TT HeadlockZ range of jig heads. So like the DemonZ, they've got that headlock keeper to lock your soft plastic in place on the jig head. And I like to fish that. Again, I've got a 1/4 ounce, but I've got a stack of lighter weights there as well for fishing the canals and fishing the shallows and when there's less wind and less flow. But you can see there, that's the fine wire hook and that's our heavy wire hook. So if I'm fishing it on a light wire, a HeadlockZ Finesse, I like to fish it on a 1/0. If I'm fishing it on the HD, I like to fish it on a size 1. And that's a brutally strong hook, that HeadlockZ HD. If you're fishing around structure, heavy drags, and you really want to rip those fish out of timber and oyster racks and that sort of thing, you probably jump from that fine wire hook up to that HeadlockZ HD. When it gets a bit shallower, or I'm making a big long cast with the wind and I want something a bit lighter, I commonly fish this 1/8 ounce, and that's a 1/8 ounce in a 1/0, and that's in a HeadlockZ Finesse, but it's a bit different. It's a UV head, a painted head. So another option where I can get a bit of punch with that UV reactive color to help the fish find that lure, especially in the dirty water. And then finally, another one that I have in my kit is this guy. So he's a bit different. This is a TT Nedlocks, and it's a mushroom shaped jigger, and it's perfect for stand-up presentations. So with that grub on the bottom, his tail standing up in the air, waving around, that's a 1/10 ounce. You can get lighter and you can get heavier, but that's a TT Nedlocks in a size 1. Perfect for stand-up fishing and shuffling and dragging and shaking it on the bottom, which I do when I'm fishing shallow water and in amongst those sandy patches in the weed. This is a great presentation. So there you go, there's a handful of jig heads that you can choose from TT when you're fishing those deadly 2.5 inch GrubZ. Let's get back into the fish. Yep, oh yeah, there we go. In against that mangrove edge. Oh, he's fired up. Oh, lost him. Just lip hooked him probably. Can be good fun fishing these mangrove edges for brim because the fish are right in there, and when they get you, they want to take you right back in there. So I'll go back into that pressure point where the tide's hitting that edge. Hopefully he's got a few mates in there with him. It didn't take long for him to eat that, so I'm just giving it that twitching and shaking. Give it a bit of a pause every now and then so it gets down in the water column a bit. And he just absolutely drilled it, but couldn't keep him connected unfortunately. Yeah, that was pretty cool there. So you can see there, when I got that tap, I didn't just reef it away. So you want to give that fish time to get back and have another crack at it. So just by shaking it in the zone, he came back and he drilled it. So Oh, brim lava grubs. So there we go. And that's, I'm fishing that 1/4 ounce head still. You can see he's absolutely scoffed that. 1/4 ounce head is allowing me in this breeze and flow to punch it in where I want it to be and control it and keep in touch with it with that heavier head. So he's just a handful of brim, but great fun on light gear, 1 to 3 kilo gear, picking these mangrove edges. We've just shuffled along a little bit further along the mangroves, sitting a cast distance out. Make that cast right into the mangroves, and then we're just going to give it that shaking retrieve out. So very twitchy, prawn-like, prawn kicking sort of retrieve. Keep it moving, give it a pause. And the good thing is when you find brim in these sorts of areas, there's often a few of them together, so they get more competitive. Areas where you're fishing and it might be single fish, you've really got to work for them a bit harder, whereas if these guys get competitive and they're all trying to eat it, you'll find the bites get a lot more aggressive. You can catch quite a few fish fairly quickly. You might be able to pick up with that incoming tide, the water pushing up onto the edge of the mangroves there and then moving around the corner. And we call that a pressure point, and it'll often hold bait and fish will hunt in that pressure point. They'll hunt in that current line and also in that eddy that forms at the back of the mangroves there. So we'll make a cast up into there and see if there's anything holding in that bit of a pressure wave, that pressure point at the front there. Rain's given us some stick today, that's for sure. Spent half the time hiding from the rain, half the time casting a line. So even though the weather's bad, the fish don't care, they're already wet, they don't mind. We just got to brave the weather a little bit and we'll find ourselves a few fish. Yep, there we go. There we go. Come on out of there, buddy. Oh, get out of there, get out of there. Oh, he's up in there. Oh no, come on mate. Oh. It's me fishing my light line and Hollywood drags. I've got to get into them a bit more. I've got another rod rigged here, so I'll just get it straight in there. See what we can find. That might have been a big grunter. Took us back up into the sticks there. Fish on. No, weed on. Oh, flatty. Flatty. Oh, yep. He's a little bit cranky. He's a little bit cranky, that one. Feels like a decent grunter, that one. So just hopping the 2.5 inch grubs on the bottom. We've come away from the mangroves. The tide's pushed right up into there and the brim have moved further back up into the mangroves now. So we're basically coming to an area that's like a big weed flat with some sandy patches through it. And the sandy patches are what I'm hitting for these guys. So sand and rubble patches. That's a javelin fish, grunter. He's a silver or spotted grunter, so he'd be a legal fish if you're looking for a feed. And you often find these guys up on the flats where you find the brim and that sort of thing, flathead. So wherever these guys are, you're going to catch a bunch of other species as well. So that's a nice grunter on the 2.5 inch grubs, picking these sand and rubble patches in the weed flats. Whoa, it feels a bit brimmy. A little bit brimmy up on the flat. In this situation here, we've got the tide's turned on us. So the tide's running out, the wind's pushing us back this way, so we've got a nice slow drift, drifting back out with the tide and just covering plenty of water on the flats. He's a decent handful of brim. Might put the net under him actually. Come on, mate. So the great thing about this plastic is the versatility. We can roll it and twitch it like a bait fish. We can shake it like a prawn, skipping and twitching, and we can bounce it on the bottom as well. So bouncing it on the bottom represents a worm. You know, we're moving across the bottom with all those grubs and other critters that are on the bottom. Even a yabby or crab, that tail can represent a claw. So very versatile presentation that represents a lot of different food that these guys feed on without directly representing a prawn or a bait fish or a worm. It kind of has a bit of everything about it. He's absolutely scoffed that, and he's a nice handful of bream. Yep, up on the flats there. Oh, I found a few now. We did it tough a bit earlier, that running out tide. Now these fish are making the most of that tide before it disappears. Not giants, but you know, don't mind catching a handful of fish like that. You can see the importance there of that chemically sharpened hook there, just in the lip, that guy there. So no matter whether it's a big one or a handful like that guy, that chemically sharpened hook gets them right in the lip when they're just nipping at the tail of the plastic. Righto, good fun on the flats. All right, fish on. Basically fished the end of the run in. We've got a handful of grunter, a handful of bream in pretty average conditions. Fishing up around mangrove edges and up on the flats. Just moved to a different area now, different flat on the dropping tide. So the flow is coming out around the corner here and we're fishing up on this flat. Hopping the 2.5 inch grubs. This fish feels all right. Haven't got colour yet, so I haven't seen whether it's a flatty. No, it's silver. Might be a nice grunter, I think, up on the flat. Oh, yep, that is a beautiful grunter. Come, buddy, get in there. That is a solid grunter. They love those grubs. Just hopped and twitched on the bottom. That guy's picked it up, screaming run. 1/4 ounce 1/0 midnight oil, 2.5 inch grubs. If you're chasing a mixed bag of species, oh, look at that, he's spat out a worm. There's the worm, there's our worm, drifting up off the bottom. He's picked up on that and eaten it. So there you go. Pretty average conditions today. We've had a lot of wind, a lot of rain, dirty water. Just a quick session out on the top of the tide and then that turn and dropping tide. A few grunter, a few bream on that reliable presentation, that ZMan GrubZ. If you're fishing tough conditions or you just want to get into your first fish or a few more fish on soft plastics, make sure you check out that deadly little ZMan 2.5 inch GrubZ. Fish on.